It was not my primary motive to hurt anybody's feelings. But I think we could go a hell of a lot further in hurting people's feelings before we wake up one day and the principles and ideals that give us the freedoms we have in the first place are gone forever. And the further our culture deteriorates, the greater chance there is that's going to happen. Those of you who have been coming around for years, you know that I am a huge fan of American history, especially the founding times, and that I consider them the absolute heroic role models, the founding people and the founding fathers. And throughout all their correspondence, they told us that for us to keep the republic, as Benjamin Franklin so famously said, there would have to be the practice of both public and private morality, the practice of both public and private virtues. And we live in a culture today where those are not tolerated. And I'm not going to keep my mouth shut when I see this happening. And that's how I feel about that. I have been called a homophobe. Again. I've been called a homophobe, but people think I'm a homo because I was a wrestler and I wore trunks and I oiled myself up and wrestled around with other grown men. People want it both ways all the time. It's sort of like when people write and they begin their comments and say, what you did, what you've done, even your birth, and what you have to say, what you forever have to say, does not deserve anybody's attention ever. It's not worth anybody's time. And then they go on to write me a whole essay telling me why. I, throughout my life, have had many relationships and acquaintances with homosexuals. I don't have a problem with homosexuals or homosexuality per se, but I do have a problem with the radical homosexual agenda. I would not have made my sarcastic remarks about Brokeback Mountain if it wasn't for the fact that when I went and read the articles to get some background on this kid, Heath, they were, you could tell, trying to amp up the praise for his great performance in the movie. They were trying to turn that into the idea that he had made a greater contribution to mankind because he decided to participate in the movie. Him and all the other people that made the movie. That they were so courageous for making that movie. That they had broke such great creative ground. That they had put their careers at such potential risk by deciding to do the project. I mean, the way that they were pumping up the praise for these people was like they were the conquerors of a new free world. And I thought to myself, you know, this guy's great performances in movies is one thing. But when they try to turn it into this idea that he made a greater contribution to society, that is absolute fantasy bullshit. People before us, and this is another well-used line or theme in everything I've said in the years I've had my website and been putting commentary up there. People before us have made greater sacrifices and done greater things than all of us today. All of us. And the lives of those people, you can't tell their stories anymore in the schoolrooms today. It's not politically correct to tell the stories of their lives. And when entertainment wants to tell the stories of their lives, they want to rewrite history and they want to make up lies. Trying to pump up this guy's reputation to some heroic level is disgraceful. and it was obvious that all of it was only being done to deflect attention from the self-destructive behavior that created the tragedy in the first place. Brokeback Mountain was simply a piece of propaganda to cram homosexuality down the public's throat. It was an assault on a traditional American icon, the American cowboy, and all the ideals and virtues that are embodied in that iconic image. And the ideals and virtues, mind you, that greater people than all of us have used to live great lives. When I see people, in effect, go poking their finger in the chest of the biographies and the history of really great people, I get pissed off. It's not about tolerance anymore for these radical homosexuals. It's about intolerance. Their intolerance. Their intolerance for a decent, traditional, and more common lifestyle. And the mission they have to remove from the public sphere any discussion of it. And that doesn't work for me. All that said, I am on the record for a long time saying that I have a wicked, sarcastic sense of humor. And I have a reputation for going out on college campuses and instigating the over-the-top drama the young homosexuals on college campuses will give themselves up to. There's not any anger or bitterness or hatred or ready to go off on them that ever happens. The most infamous event for me was probably the University of Connecticut, and it happened again at DePaul University. And if you go and you watch that video, there's no anger in me. There's no lashing out at these young kids that don't have their life act together. It was all done in fun, all done in good humor. It's funny that people can't take a joke anymore, but most people spend all their living making their own life one. People need to take a breath and they need to relax a little bit. That when I use my sarcasm because that's my sense of humor. That's the kind of sense of humor I have. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But I'm not going to change it. About my final comments, I think I made it clear that I believe this Heath kid killed himself. I said that since he had killed himself, he had removed the negative influence from his child's life. I've been trying real hard, but I just can't find a way to see how being a substance abuser, a drug addict, as we're going to come and find out, being a drug addict and a great father go together. It just doesn't work for me. I didn't say it in my post, but since I have this incredible opportunity here to do so, let me further add that I don't find anything positive about the way this guy and his partner decided to bring a child into the world. These actors and actresses jump from bed to bed like they jump from movie to movie. They go out to these scenic, romantic locations where most people would only go for a once-in-a-lifetime honeymoon or vacation. They have everything taken care of for them. They don't have to worry or be concerned about anything. They totally indulge themselves in the fantasy of the movie, the fantasy of their character. Their passions and their emotions are at an intense high. They fall in lust for one another, and next thing you know, they decide they're going to have a love child. And they think, well, as long as we can provide for it materially, that's all that really matters. That's not all that really matters toward being a good or great parent or raising a child properly.